Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Some of you guys might know Carl Weathers from his biceps, which were displayed opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Predator.
Dylan! You son of a bitch.
Fun fact, that is the manliest man to ever man-shake in the history of man, and it defeated racism, the xenomorphs, and the Soviet Union all in one fell swoop. Others might remember Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed, who started off as Rocky's biggest enemy and would eventually turn into his biggest supporter and training montage partner. It was a good role for Carl Weathers because before he became an actor, he was a talented athlete. He was a boxer, a wrestler, he did judo, gymnastics, soccer, and he even played linebacker for San Diego State University and eventually played a short stint in the NFL as a free agent, signing with the Raiders underneath coach John Madden. And apparently right before John Madden cut him from the team after 2 years of playing there, he told Carl Weathers that he was too sensitive. Now these words were initially taken as a painful insult by Carl, but eventually he realized that he did, in fact, have a lot of sensitivity. He had the emotional intelligence and empathy required to truly understand characters and portray them on screen as an actor. Or something like that. I don't know. I'm just impressed that this individual has been able to reach the pinnacle of athleticism by joining the NFL and playing for a few years, and also reach the pinnacle of acting by being in Hollywood. If that's not a sign of a great individual who has a lot of talent, I don't know what is. Although I have to admit, I personally remember seeing Carl Weathers for the first time in a much less serious role as Chubbs in the film Happy Gilmore.
We've only just begun.
What a voice. Carl Weathers was a man of many surprises. And even more recently, new generation of Star Wars fans have been introduced to this 80s action hero in the form of Greef Karga in The Mandalorian. It was a role that he was born to play, but unfortunately for all Star Wars fans, for all fans of cinema, Carl Weathers passed away in his sleep on Thursday at the age of 76. Rest in peace. And in honor of him, today we'll be breaking down his latest character, Greef Karga. We'll be talking about why this is one heck of a Star Wars character. And his story is far more important than we realize. You know, you strip away all the fancy locations, the alien species, and all the magical force powers and laser weapons, and Star Wars at its core is one of the greatest social commentaries on the human condition in this modern era. In a day and age where people become increasingly sensitive and triggered by everything they see on the internet or on TV, it's become harder and harder for creators to find a safe place where they can just express themselves. And so science fiction becomes a safe haven for artists to explore controversial political, social, and even economic issues without actually getting too close to the painful subject matter at hand. Want to talk about the dangers of fascism and how authoritarians can destroy a democracy, a republic from within? We'll just check out the prequels. It might take place in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, but it is very relevant. Want to talk about how unrealistic pacifism is as a government policy? Well then check out the New Republic's decline in Ahsoka and The Mandalorian. Being well-meaning and extremely kind and compassionate is not a substitute for proper governance. What about a discussion about the prison industrial complex and how it creates a demand for increased policing? Well, did you see the prisoner arc in Andor? Because damn. Of course, not every topic discussed by Star Wars has to be serious or grim. Star Wars is also about how absent parenting can lead to your children forming incestual relations. It also covers the ethics of eating semi-sentient beings that look delicious. It also talks about the ethics of murdering your enemies when they're still children and can't fight back. The story of Greef Karga is another Star Wars classic. It's all about how larger political changes and cultural changes affect individuals. You see, Greef Karga, like Carl Weathers, is a well-rounded and talented individual with a healthy amount of ambition. He's a fighter, a manager, and a leader. I think no matter where you place an individual like Greef Karga, he will find his way to the top. Greef Karga has never really been far from a leadership position, and that is because he combines strength, intelligence, and caution into a very neat package. You generally don't see gunslingers walking around at his age, and so you have to imagine the amount of experience he has with dealing with trouble is immense. Now, during the Imperial era, Greef Karga was a magistrate, but he would eventually be disgraced and forced to step down. Now, we're not told what exactly Greef Karga did or where he was a magistrate. It could have been on Navarro, it could have been on any Outer Rim territories planet. But no matter where he was, during this period of time, there was a great amount of political change and conflict in the Outer Rim. The Empire had begun to crack down increasingly on the citizens of the area, as most of the rebellion's recruits came from this region. Given the Outer Rim's remote location and the lack of political power stationed there, the Empire was not afraid of carrying out massacres on the local population or just seizing land, property, and resources. And so for a magistrate in this region, there was very little an individual could do to protect their own people and land. Resist and you will be crushed, lie down backwards, and you will be exploited. It really takes a savvy statesman and negotiator to navigate through such troubled waters and protect their people. And I'm sure that's what Greef Karga attempted to do. But when you're working with an organization full of power-hungry, social climbing psychopaths, becoming disgraced and losing your job can happen in a million ways, and a lot of those ways probably won't reflect your ethics, your abilities, or personal skills. The Empire just has a very chaotic working environment. Anything can happen. Although if Greef Karga was nailed for corruption, I'm pretty sure that mithril accountant of him probably got him in trouble with some creative accounting. But like I said, Greef Karga always finds a way. He survives. As the Empire falls apart and the Outer Rim is flooded with fleeing war criminals and heavily armed warlords, the bounty hunting profession becomes increasingly lucrative. The planet Navarro, which lies outside of the New Republic's territory, suddenly becomes home to all sorts of unsavory characters, many of whom are looking for hunting work or trying to escape hunters. Greef Karga once again finds his calling as the Guildmaster of the Navarro Hunters, an official chapter of the Bounty Hunting Guild. Yeah, bounty hunting is not an easy job. It does not attract individuals who are easy to deal with. What you usually get are a diverse group of dangerous individuals, ex-soldiers, criminals, smugglers, and fresh-faced wannabes who all share the desire to hunt down human beings and are generally very well armed to do so. These are generally high-headed individuals who are independent contractors simply because they're not capable of listening to rules and following instructions, and so they can't join more structured organizations that deal out violence as their main product, like a security force or military. Greef Karga had the tough job of making sure that these dangerous individuals didn't just rip each other's throats out. It takes a lot of brawn and brains to manage so many heavily armed individuals. But judging by the look of things, it seems like Greef Karga has done a great job with the Navarro chapter of the Bounty Hunting Guild. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the only successful business enterprise on this forgotten planet. And with all businesses, the only way you can really ensure growth is by creating a stable and safe environment to operate in. And that's exactly what Greef Karga is able to achieve in that cantina, an environment that most likely was created by Greef Karga's steady guidance of the organization. Greef Karga is an individual with a lot of skills and talent, and he traded those skills and talent to the Empire for a bit of power. And then when the Empire collapsed, he would trade his abilities for credits from the Bounty Hunting Guild. But then he would meet the bounty hunter Dinjarin and his little baby Gogurt. Karga definitely liked Dinjarin. From a business standpoint, having a Mandalorian on your roster is exciting and can attract big-name clients. Also, it didn't hurt that Dinjarin was an honorable bounty hunter who generally got the job done, until he couldn't with baby Gogurt. As an orphan himself, Dinjarin couldn't just pull the trigger on a baby. Even a bounty hunter has lines that they won't cross. Karga was probably just like Dinjarin at a younger age, but all that power and all the credits have blinded him to his true purpose. I mean, Greef Karga is not some middle-level manager, he's a true leader. He understood how to manage large groups of individuals and keep them productive, a very sought-after skill, especially in the Outer Rim territories where really local government is all you get, and generally the local governors are either really unskilled or super corrupt. When Dinjarin runs with the baby Gogurt, he breaks every rule in the bounty hunting codebook, and that forces Greef Karga to send his men after him. You can tell that Karga is somewhat reluctant to do this. Somewhere deep down was a man who still had a conscience. But being in power for so long can really weigh down on an individual. Being in control of other people's lives for such a long time, it can be overwhelming. When you get to a certain level of leadership, when you're in command of enough people, every decision ends up hurting someone, even the best decisions. And so sometimes when you become a leader, you do have to be a little desensitized to these smaller moral and ethical issues and focused on the larger picture. But then while en route to capture Dinjarin and baby Gogurt, Greef Karga is attacked by vicious flying creatures and injected with a lethal poison. Without much hesitation, Gogurt uses the Force to heal Karga.
He's trying to eat me.
The dude must have been tripping his balls off. because of the poison. And that experience would go on to greatly change Greef Karga. He would end up killing his own men, who he had been planning to use to kidnap baby Gogurt with. He would then end up partaking in the expulsion of all Imperial remnant forces in Navarro and establish himself as the new magistrate of Navarro City. And instead of turning Navarro back into a hub for bounty hunting, Greef Karga realized that for the first time in a long time, he had the freedom to do whatever he wanted. The Empire was no longer looming over his shoulders, and even his hunger for credits had satiated a little bit after his near-death experience. And with these pressures removed, Greef Karga was finally able to focus on long-term goals. He realized he wanted to create a prosperous and safe colony here on Navarro. He makes New Republic war criminal Cara Dune the marshal for the city, and together they mop up the remaining criminal presence in Navarro City. Greef Karga understands better than anyone that having a shootout in the streets and criminals preying on the hyperspace lanes scares away business interests. But by cleaning up Navarro City, merchants and business people would finally start returning. And some of them would actually bring their families along with their kids. The old cantina in which Greef Karga used to hold court and assemble his army of bounty hunters became a school, a good sign that Karga's security initiatives were working well. Soon, the streets were decorated with vegetation and lined with vendors. Navarro City had become a thriving and independent trade anchor located right on the Hydean Way. You even had a small mining operation being set up in the asteroid field in the system, bringing not only more revenue, but also cheap building goods for the planet. The last time Din Djarin was in the neighborhood, Karga was overseeing a construction boom and planning another neighborhood for new residents to live in. Now, when the Imperial remnants sent pirate Gorian Shard to harass and take over Navarro, Greef Karga, like Space Moses, would lead his people to safety in the desert. It's at this point his networking and negotiating skills would come into play. And after the New Republic declines to intervene because Navarro lacks membership with the Galactic Organization, Karga turns to Din Djarin and his Mandalorian tribe, the Children of the Watch, for help. In exchange for dealing with the pirates, Karga was willing to give the Children of the Watch a large stretch of land that they could permanently call their home. It was really a win-win situation for everyone. The Mandalorians loved to kill things, especially thieving criminals. They also needed a home, and Navarro had plenty of land and was looking to expand. And honestly, who doesn't want a bunch of heavily armored and armed Mandalorians living in your neighborhood to serve as a pirate deterrent? You know, some people see the world as a zero-sum game, and these individuals are kind of small-minded and quite stupid. What they don't realize is their own lack of trust of humanity is what creates this really toxic environment that they continue to perpetuate with their beliefs and their actions. If you act like a crazy person, you'll most likely be surrounded by other people who think that way. The best leaders are the leaders who seek compromise, who create deals in which all parties are satisfied. These are the true geniuses, the people with real courage and solutions to seemingly impossible problems. And that is what's great about Karga. Greef Karga finds a way, no matter what, to not only survive, but also help his own people prosper. He's a capable magistrate beneath the Empire. He was capable as the leader of the Bounty Hunting Guild, but he really doesn't hit his full stride until he removes himself from all of those other influences and finally starts ruling the way he wants to rule, without too much external pressure. The story of Greef Karga reminds us that we as individuals sometimes lose sight of our own worth and value when we join larger organizations. The culture and the policies of those organizations can be quite powerful and overwhelming, and the power and credits they exchange for your loyalty might seem worth it at a quick glance. But in the long run, you can't just be a hired tool for another organization. You can't just escape the responsibility of your actions because you're doing said actions for a larger organization. Greef Karga is a reminder that we can all do better, especially if we're given a chance and placed in a healthy environment to flourish in. Unfortunately, due to Carl Weathers' untimely death, we don't really know what's going to be happening to Greef Karga. He'll be joining the late Ray Stevenson's character Balin Skull, two characters who are way too interesting to kill off and deserve to continue living on in the Star Wars franchise in one way or another. So there we have it, guys. Let me know in the comment section below what you think Disney should do with the Greef Karga character now that Carl Weathers has passed away. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.